our news. This is part 2 of it. We're going to get into more specific things about housing market, and we can get through these fairly quickly. But the Case-Shiller Index came out for September, and they're looking. The latest report came out, and the housing, according to Shiller, who's a professor at Yale, has likely bottomed, but there's lots of worries. And so the good news is he thinks we nationally have hit a bottom. Now, we certainly have seen much better than that when it comes to Austin. I mean, we're seeing really strong trends in Austin. Now, if you go beyond that, what he does talk about is considerable headwinds still facing housing. And he cites things that we've been talking about all along, the economy, job growth. He talks about the difficulty in getting financing. And what's interesting is he cites the demographics long-term that will likely place downward pressure on pricing. And this has to do with that large baby boomer and then that echo boom behind them, all getting out of the ages of which they want to purchase what is in the majority of the housing stock. And this will have implications more long-term than short-term. The biggest driver, which we'll get into in a later article, is the job growth and the economic growth, which allow people to be in a position to actually purchase. So this will be interesting to watch. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Well, I think that we see a lot of people that are struggling to get loans because they're not W-2 salaried employees. There's a lot of people making good money that are 1099 employees, so that they work for themselves. I'm a big proponent of making sure those guys get more loans.
Well, it's one of those things where I think my personal opinion is some sort of a fair and balanced approach to it. I mean, we're swung way too far, and the thing that makes me most concerned is we swung way too far, and a lot of it hasn't been implemented with Dodd-Frank.
Right.
So as we go through the process of what happens over the next 4 years, this could have serious implications. We could end up with an even more difficult environment for buyers to purchase, including those self-employed buyers. And that is the headwinds that Shiller talks about. I mean, if we can get job growth back on track, that will help the overall job market. We know we have lots of people moving into Austin that are renting because they can't sell their homes in their market they're relocating from. And will buy once they sell their houses. And as this occurs more and more, and the markets in their market they left get better, we'll get more buyers, and this will be a positive for Austin. Now, tempered against that headwind is what happens with the local market from a financing standpoint. And it's not just a local issue. Dodd-Frank is a national issue, but we'll get hit just as hard. There's no exemption for Austin because we tend to have a high demographic of these first-time buyers. A lot of them are working in startups. They don't have a job history. We're always going to have that as a headwind until we get to more of a tempered approach. All right, let's get into the next article, Perry. This is one that I know is near and dear to you. And what I found interesting about this is about a week ago, most of the large franchises, and you work for Prudential in a local office that's a part of a big franchise, weren't really thinking about Warren Buffett, were they?
No, not at all.
And so, and here in Austin, obviously a big part of our market is Keller Williams. It's a company that's been around for more than 25 years and have 700 plus offices, and they're a big franchise as well. And I got to imagine when this announcement came out that it rattled across a lot of these big franchises' desks. You happen to be right in the fold with this because Warren Buffett is basically combining his enterprise with the Prudential franchises as well as Real Living, and there's going to be a new Berkshire Hathaway franchise, is there not?
There is. As I'm told, our new name in March will be Berkshire Hathaway Texas Realty.
So it's changing from Prudential
Texas Realty to the Berkshire Hathaway brand.
And this is interesting, and we have a lot of real estate professionals and agents across the country that listen to this podcast. And in many markets all over the country, this is something that wasn't even on the radar a week ago because as much as people would like to talk about the top franchises, the Remax of the world where my license is, or Keller Williams, or others, the combination of Berkshire Hathaway, Prudential, Real Living into this new enterprise is a huge shift in the landscape. 75,000 agents. It certainly ranks up there in the top 5, if not the top 3, for headcount once this is implemented, and as far as agents. And it's going to have a huge implication long term, I think, to the landscape of franchises. Don't you?
I do. I mean, there are thousands of these things all over. What I like best is it's hard to get a company as solid as Prudential, and I think I like best that it was the Berkshire Hathaway brand that came on board and took the role of leading the charge. Brookfield is majority owned by Berkshire Hathaway, who bought Prudential. I like the fact that they're giving a lot of people the chance to continue the Prudential brand. It's just like buying an apartment complex. You buy all the leases with it when you buy a real estate company, apparently. And I think there's going to be strong incentives for everybody to come on board in March. And I know that we've made the commitment to move over there. And I can't wait for the convention in Vegas. It should be fun.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, it will be very interesting because here's the positive on this, and not talking about, and there's lots of good franchises out there, but this does change the landscape in one major way, and nobody can deny this, whether you like one franchise versus another better because that happens to be where you are as an agent, because you know how agents are. They're so passionate about thinking they're always in the best spot. So what's interesting is this is, and you can't argue with this, a huge bet by one of the smartest, arguably one of the wealthiest people in the world, and it's a bet on long-term real estate being positive. And I don't think you can look at this any other way than that, can you?
No, you can't.
And so this is great, in my opinion, for people that were worried about real estate. And we hear this from some of our peers. They're realtors that think that the real estate agents think that the market is going to be down, and they're downtrodden, and they're concerned about things. So this is something that I saw as a huge positive for real estate.
I agree.